Hello, my name's Hank. Nice to see you. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. On my way to school. Over the weekend, some articles came out and some things were said and done. You know, it's all in politics and fun. If you want to call politics fun. I guess if you can call politics fun. And anyway, you chalk it up. Politics is a fecal mistress. It can help and hurt a person depending on the application. But over the weekend, there was a lot of dispute, debate, or confrontation issues about building the wall. And I spent some time just wondering, trying to logically think of why we should not build this wall. Because apparently those that were put in power or in our, I guess, government 10, 20, even 30 or more years ago started to restructure government to be fitting to what they desired it to be at this point. And it's rather frustrating when, having experienced citizenship from the point of view of which I have, and that is as a military veteran. And we are all to the understanding that if you go into the military, you go to sacrifice and support diplomacy. I have no problems with that. I feel that all people should be treated equally and fairly. But who's being treated equally and fairly by not building the wall? Because when you truly look into it, it's our brothers, sisters, sons and daughters, cousins, friends that are going into the military to do a job that the majority of this country chooses not to. And you hear a lot of the supporters for not building the wall say, well, you chose to join the military. Nobody made you do that. So we should not have to pay for nothing for you. I mean, this is a far-fetched, yes, it's stretched out. Not every person against building the wall feels this way, but those that are in the right places to apply the right pressure to prevent that wall from being built are the ones that, majority of them, think and feel that way. The rest of the people just jump on the bandwagon and support them because they just feel that the wall is not necessary. So instead of building a wall that can help, I say, try to get things on the right page and get things going forward for the American citizen who pays his taxes, his or her taxes, and abides by the laws and, you know, works hard and does everything that an American citizen should do, to be told that they're now going to start forking the bill to pay for illegal immigrants crossing the border. I don't understand this. I still don't get why it is such a big deal for people to choose to not build a wall that can provide many attributions, pardon me, in American society. And building the wall, okay, so it does help. It does keep people out of the country that want to come in. That's sad. But those same people coming into this country typically come here and don't have to pay taxes. They slide in under the radar. So when a law is broken, it's hard to track the person down for many reasons, because one, if you're not a tax-paying citizen, you don't have to provide, or more likely, if you've been convicted of a crime, your fingerprints probably will not be in the system to reflect your previous crimes. So it's grand that Mexico supports the idea of sending their people into America to live a better life or make a better life for themselves. But let's look at the fact that what the wall's supposed to be there for. Well, along with the abundance of illegal immigrants crossing into this country, not paying taxes, and being afforded medical care and treatment that exceeds a good majority of our tax-paying, law-abiding, hard-working American citizens, now we are looking at the possibility of having to deal with their criminalities. And a best example that can be looked at is the city of Los Angeles. I mean, beautiful city. I don't want that to sound like, I don't want to sound like I'm bashing Los Angeles, but Los Angeles has significant problems with homelessness. And if you go down into the ghettos and talk to some of the people that are down there, you'll learn there are some people that did choose to be homeless because it's easier to not pay taxes than it is to pay taxes in their eyes. But then you have individuals, and I know of a couple of people that had a similar situation happen where they were on deployment, come back, and everything in their house was gone. And their wife or their husband had taken everything and they had split, leaving the military member high and dry. Well, the military will do what it can to help you get through any problems you are experiencing at the time. But the military is also looking for a reason to not accept any other liability. So at a point where you may be a liability, you may find yourself unemployed very easily, and that happens very common. It's very common in the military. So that individual then comes home, has nothing, no job, no nothing, and ends up living on the streets. And you'll hear a lot of stories similar to this if you speak to any of the homeless in some of the streets of like Los Angeles, San Diego. I mean, every city has its bout with homelessness. But in the state of California, where they typically condone and want to protect illegal immigrants to cross in, their streets are starting to look like Mexico because they are draining the bottom out of their resources that are in place to support and help the hard-working, tax-paying, law-abiding, legal American citizens. Once those resources are tapped and gone, you're going to start to see a direction of our government heading south. It already has started to head there because the politicians that are in office today was put there by none other than your own social population of America. And who has the best opportunity to finagle and get into the cracks and crevices of our system so that they can manipulate it for personal growth? Politicians. When you go into an office of power, and you can be in an office of power for more than let's say 10, 15, even 20 years, you have time to manipulate people and situations for your own benefit. So decades ago, these politicians were already developing their own way of doing things that would deepen their pockets, and law-abiding, hard-working, tax-paying, legal American citizens such as yourself and myself get stuck with forking or fitting the bill. When the politicians pass a bill saying, yes, they can bring these people on in, or we'll just increase our taxes so that we can offset the cost of the medical expenses that we afford for illegal immigrants, or we'll just cut the government budget to augment for the illegal immigrants, who's losing out? Not the politician, because they don't have to pay taxes. It's the ones that are considered the blue-collar workers, the majority of our country, the ones that go out and do the work to allow the politicians to continue to manipulate our government. And it's sad. It's sad to know that a good portion of our own government would much rather take benefits and money away from those that sacrifice the most of our military services and the rest of the tax-paying, law-abiding, hard-working American population, and giving it to those that would much rather see America fall than profit or grow. And I won't say that every immigrant that crosses in here has that in mind. That's not true at all. But there is enough of those wanting to see the fall of our government that it is actually impacting everything we do in society, in American society today. I mean, a lot of pressure is put on President Trump. Ultimately, he is the go-to guy because he's the president, and if something fails, he's the one that will receive the blame. But it doesn't help when society works against the one person in our government that is put in place to liaison our economic actions to ensure that hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying, legal American citizens are being taken care of first and foremost before someone that comes in illegally is taken care of. And it's rather sad to think that we're going to continue to allow our government to dictate our direction to the point where more and more of our American citizens are going to suffer. I don't know what's more disturbing, knowing that or just the willingness of a good portion of the American people to allow that to happen. I understand everybody wants to do good. Everybody wants to do right. Everyone wants to make a difference. They want to participate and contribute. But it's taking money and resources away from the ones that make this country work and giving it to those that come in illegally and have no concern or desire to actually provide. Now, again, I understand that not every illegal immigrant comes into America not wanting to participate or make a difference. But like I said, we are still having those that are coming in that don't want to contribute, influencing and causing issues at such an alarming rate that it directly impacts everyday model citizens. It's rather sad to see that American citizens would much rather not build a wall that could help prevent and deter certain people, such as human traffickers and drug traffickers. Now, it's easier to get drugs in than humans, but when there's enough money being paid out, where there's a will, there's a way. And even if you build a wall, it's known that it would be a process where they would find a way to get over the wall regardless. But the thing is that wall helps prevent and deter those that are able to just walk across the border at this time. And it makes it harder for a human trafficker to carry a 7-8 month old child over into America to be sold into slavery. And yes, human trafficking is a huge reason that wall should be built. Because right now, America leads the world in human trafficking. Yes, that is accurate. It's not an assumption. It's not made up. If you don't believe me, do some research. Find the truth. But America stands to lead the world in human trafficking. Tampa Bay, Florida is the third most popular or profiting or largest city in America that practices in human trafficking right now. Human trafficking is the second largest industry in the world, standing second to only drugs. And it's only standing second because you can get more drugs in a container than you can get people in a container. So, but people are a profit because you can reutilize them over and over and over. And statistically, and the validity is still questionable because it's hard to prove this, but there are more than 27 million human beings in human trafficking right now. And human trafficking is no more than slavery. We've just gone through the existence of mankind and redirected the name or our efforts from combating slavery to combating human trafficking. But human trafficking is such a new term that it's not widely used, because if you really do investigations into it, you'll also learn that big government profits from human trafficking through the means of cheap labor. When these big industries or corporations go out to find these smaller third-person companies to hire laborers, those third-person laborers are actually, not all of them, but a good portion of them, to the point where it does affect our economy. But the third-person companies are the ones bringing the human traffic victims into America and selling them or marketing them out for cheap labor. And the remaining parties that are left in trafficking that are not working in cheap labor camps are working out of sex camps, brothels. It is stood to be said that over $40 billion is made a year through human trafficking or slavery. $40 billion. And that industry is growing exponentially by the day. Less than 2% or less of the victims that we know of that were at one time in human trafficking, less than 2% of those victims were ever rescued. Less than 2% of 27 plus million. That's not many people. And when you stand in front of a human traffic victim and you ask them, so what was the process of getting you into human trafficking, and that young-minded individual, even adolescent child, explains to you that they have been in human trafficking for more than 2 years, and they were brought here with the idea that they were going to come up from Mexico and work and earn money to give back to their family, to bring them here into America so that they can make a better life for themselves. And it doesn't need to be said exactly how many of those individuals end up dying, because if they are never found, they most likely they find themselves dead and discarded like trash. If they cannot produce or do the job that the human trafficking person desires for them to have, they just discard them like trash. And that goes to say that the human traffic victims not only work in substandards for work, but that their living conditions are substandard as well. The human traffickers don't have to provide medical care, because to them, the slave is no more valuable to them than the piece of chewing gum stuck to the bottom of their shoe. And when you learn that millions of people are brought into this country through the southern border by access and way of Mexico, and a good portion of those crossing in are actually human traffic victims, and you try to explain that you don't want to build a wall to give these people a better chance, are you really going to give them a better chance? Because, I mean, if they are brought into this country to be a slave, and where they will find themselves working the rest of their lives to pay back the debt to the human trafficker, that the human trafficker tells them they have to work off before they can earn their freedom, do they ever see the day? Yeah, I'm sure there's a few cases here and there where a person successfully got their freedom or earned their freedom. I haven't heard or seen any cases of such. You can't count it out, because if the possibility exists, it's there. It's just we haven't found the person that can say, yes, I've earned my freedom through that process. But more than not, those human traffickers will keep their victims under their control for as long as they can, whether that be by being exposed and caught, or the victim dying. And right now, our criminal justice system does not identify human trafficking as serious as what it needs to be. For example, a person using drugs can find themselves going to prison for a minimum of 20 years. A human trafficker can find himself going to prison 5, 10 years, if ever at all. Might be forced to paying a stiff fine. But a lot of the human traffickers that are caught never see a day in court. I wonder why that would be. Maybe a little bit of corruption here and there? I don't know. Gives you a reason to ask, why isn't the government getting involved? I mean, they know this. This isn't rocket science that they don't understand themselves. No, it's happening right below the surface, out of sight and out of mind. And as long as people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and those individuals contest Donald Trump and appeases the minds of the simple-minded individual that likes to follow rather than engage and actually make a difference, then you have the problem that we have. You have a government that's upside down, corrupt, And what do you think the rest of society is going to do? It's just unfortunate that our kids today think it's okay to allow people to come in and just take from them without doing anything or putting anything in place to help prepare themselves. Back to what I was saying about joining the military. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to this moment. Yes, people join the military because they want to. They join the military to make a difference, to help out. But then you got a good percentage of those individuals joining the military that have no choice but to join the military. Their parents can't pay for them to go to college. They got the grades in high school to go to college, but they don't have the grades to earn a scholarship. So instead of helping our American citizens get into college at a cheaper rate, we go in and we provide programs for illegal immigrants so that they don't get discarded, so that no child is left behind is technically the program that started that. So we will go and we will send an illegal immigrant to college, pay for the room and board, and give them a free education so that they can return to their home country, which is great. I think it's great that they want to return to their home country, but what about that tax-paying, hard-working, law-abiding citizen that has a child that wants to go to college his or herself and cannot do so because the funds that was originally in place to help that individual go to school has been exhausted to pay for the illegal immigrants to go to school? I mean, think about this. You go to a public university and ask them what kind of programs they have in place for people that come to this country that want to gain an education, can't pay for it, but are also considered illegal immigrants. They just want to go to school. There's a system in place to help get that person what they want so that they can obtain that degree. There's more effort put into place for a person from another country to go to a school that a person like myself and other millions of others get denied because they don't have enough money. I mean, that's bottom line. Luckily, I used my resources, such as going to school or going to the military, to earn my school. But it's sad that someone has to go through that when all I'd have to do is cross into this country illegally and ask to go. It just doesn't seem fair. And until we start battling homelessness and the treatment of our own citizens, I think we're not headed in the right direction as far as I guess equal opportunity. We're focusing on such small, insignificant issues that we don't see the big picture of things. And that's the fault of the modern American citizen. Because we hear what people like Nancy Pelosi say, and like Chuck Schumer and so many others that have their hands in the pot so much that they would commit I don't know what they would actually find themselves in a situation that they would not like. So they have nothing to lose by sticking to their guns. And it's always said that you got to have a naysayer as much as a yaysayer, because that in the middle is where everything happens. But when the nay is greater than the yay, then it gets topsy-turvy and things start to bottleneck and fall out. So think about it, Hank.